Hello everyone. My name is Elise. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing so good today. I'm trying to film in the last little dying light of the day, so we will see how this goes. I already have some shadow happening, so we're just gonna call it mood lighting, and we're living, laughing, loving. We're enjoying it. So I am going to be starting a little kind of vlog, not really. It's a vlog without B-roll. So what is that? Who knows? It is National Poetry Month for the month of April, and I tend to read more poetry than normal this month, and I wanted to kind of take you along throughout the month to track the poetry collections that I am reading. So basically, like as I read them, I'll come on and review them for you, and that will sort of be the format of this video. So far, I have already read my first poetry collection of the month, and that is And Yet by Kate Baer. This is published by Harper Perennial, and I love Kate Baer. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I love her. She's one of my favorite poets currently. This collection did not disappoint. I've read her two previous collections, What Kind of Woman and her set of erasure poems, which is called I Hope This Finds You Well, which was my favorite poetry collection I read last year. This one is tackling themes of womanhood, parenthood, and kind of like being a writer as a whole and being an artist and a poet specifically. I think that this had wonderful thematic integration throughout. I love a collection that is, you can see the theme working throughout and all of it makes sense together, but it doesn't feel overall too samey, and this definitely does that. So many of the poems were impactful to me in some way, and I really resonated with. And yeah, I just think she does a clever job with her poetry overall. I think something else that's lovely about this collection is it talks a lot about her and her spouse's relationship and the challenges of a long-term relationship with someone and the ups and downs of that, the immense love and also immense disappointment and frustration that you can have with another human being that you're in relationship for a long period of time. And I just felt like it was so lovingly and realistically captured and really appreciated that. There were so many things to love about this poetry collection. It was a great one to start out with for the month, and I can't wait to see what I get into next. So I'll see you in like a second to see the next thing that I read. So see you then. Okay, welcome back. I finished another poetry collection, and it was Alive at the End of the World by Saeed Jones. And this is starting off really good for me because this was also amazing. I really enjoyed this. I think this was an excellent collection as a whole. This one is looking at themes of grief mainly, but it also has like a touch of humor, like sarcasm, dry wit going on with it in the way that it's trying to tackle grief. And it's tackling grief over a number of things. One, about the death of his mother, which is very difficult and complicated and has ramifications for his life for many years. It's also talking about mass shootings. It's talking about climate change. It's talking about racism. So lots of stuff to grieve going on here. And I do think this was sort of the perfect combination again of the collection as a whole feeling unified and cohesive and thematically integrated, and also it not feeling too samey or repetitive. So when specific themes of grief were being tackled, they were interspersed in different sections throughout the book, so you weren't just getting them back to back to back, which I think was really smart. This book is divided into 4 sections. Then in each section you sort of got some repetition, or I should say continuation, of a poem that came up in the previous section. So for example, there is a collection of poems titled Alive at the End of the World. One part of that poem comes up in each different section of the book. So I very much enjoyed that. I think the writing was phenomenal. In some parts, the writing on the page is like sideways, and sometimes it's really looking at the format and messing with the format of the page, there's a poem that is all alternative titles to the poem that you just read previous to it. I thought that was smart. So just a lot of really interesting things being done here. It was a good balance of being really clever, but also being able to figure out what the author was doing. So I again think that this would be a really good collection if you're just getting into poetry. I do think you do need to have some sort of knowledge about some of the things that have happened in the US in the past 10, 15 years, particularly politically, around some of the shootings, around some of the popular icons that he's referencing in this collection, but you could just Google them. If you got to a place and saw a name and didn't know who that was, you could very easily Google it. So I would really highly recommend this to people. It was fantastic. And yeah, I'm just starting this off really strong with two great collections. So we will see which one I pick up and finish next. So I'll see you all in a little bit. Hello. I am back to share with you some more poetry collections that I have read. So today is the last day of April, so it's April 30th. So this will be the final collections that I'll have gotten to in the month of April. And I have two to chat to you about today, Home and Dog Songs. So I'm very excited to get to share with you. The first one that I read and finished was Home. This is published by Two Lines Press, and it's one of their Calico editions. And this was the only set of the original Calico editions that I didn't own. They come out in fours, so like 4 come out every year. And this is the first poetry anthology that I have read, and I very much enjoyed this. This one is collected based upon the theme of home, hence the title, and these are all poems translated from Arabic. So lots of different countries represented, but all from one language. So there's 9 poets in here coming from 8 different countries. And yeah, I feel like I'm just so spoiled for the poetry reading that I've done in April because I really liked this. I definitely enjoyed certain ones more than others, but there wasn't any like poet in here that I was just like, oh yeah, I'm not into that. I will say my favorite poet in here, whom I'm going to check out additional work from, is, is Ines Abbasi. And there are a couple translators that work on her poems in the collection, but I very much enjoyed her in particular, absolutely loved it. And yeah, these are all about home in one way or another. So most of these are talking about the memories of home and those being encapsulated in either a specific place or a person, and it's really evocative in that way. I liked the ways that some of the poets were playing with what home could be technically. For example, the first poem is by a poet from Palestine, and they're talking about sort of the ways that all of the tangible things around them, including like the dust in the air, hold all of these memories of like fraught conflict. And while you're living your seemingly everyday life, there's all of this history of longing and displacement and anger and everything else around you. And it's sort of embedded in the history of the land. And I really enjoyed that. Some of the ones by the author that I spoke about earlier, Inez, that I very much enjoyed, talk about home as a person, and sort of this person that they're in a long distance relationship with, and having these opportunities to meet with them and not really being able to build a physical home with them, but the ways that they're able to make the room that they're staying in together very much a part of their relationship's history and hold a lot for them. Lots of this stuff was just very, very beautiful. So this was fantastic. I highly enjoyed and would definitely recommend you picking these up if any of those kind of like themes of home and poetry sound interesting to you. So that is this one. And then lastly, the one that I most recently finished is Dog Songs. This is by Mary Oliver. And I loved this one too. Like, this is just a boon for poetry. So this is nonfiction, all about the author's relationship to all of the dogs in her life. Most of them are dogs that she has owned, but a few of them are dogs that she's had a lot of interaction with over her lifetime. So for example, her friends' dogs who are often around and she often watches. She talks about stray dogs who they end up adopting, dogs that they had the intention of adopting in the first place. So lots of dogs represented in here. And this was lovely. I swear this had me almost in tears at some points. And I know, like, you know this already. Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. I have a dog, so I'm already a dog lover. It got me in all my feels about my own dog and just how short their lives are and how lovely and exuberant and bright they make your life. And it just got me. I will say this was a very earnest collection, and a lot of times that does not work for me, but I feel like with dogs, it worked so perfectly. I mean, dogs in and of themselves can be very earnest, and it just worked. The tone worked for me in this one. This also has lovely illustrations. So you can see the cover has one of the illustrations that's within the poetry collection itself. I'll show you some other ones. So there's another one, and they're just absolutely lovely to get to actually see the dogs that they're talking about being represented. There's some where they're together. Let me show you one of the ones where they're together. So then there's two dogs. Oh, it was just great. I loved it all around. I think, you know, this is definitely a collection for dog lovers. And of course, Mary Oliver does a ton of nature writing, and that definitely shows up here as well. There's a lot of connection between the way that dogs are wild still in a certain way, and they're bridging this gap between being domesticated and being wild, which is really similar to how humans interact with the world. Like, we want to keep our natural connection to the land and the earth and nature, but we also have all of these modern amenities and ways of living, and that dogs are a great representation of how we should still continue to connect with like our wild natural selves. So yeah, lots of themes and stuff going on in here as well, but very, very earnest, and I just loved it. So that is all of the poetry reading that I had in the month of April. I will show you everything we ended up reading. So here are the 4 collections. And like I said earlier, these were all just absolutely lovely. I really enjoyed all of them, which this year in general, I have read amazing poetry. There has not been a single collection that I have not enjoyed, which is very surprising for me. That probably won't continue the rest of the year because, you know, you just take a gamble on poetry. Sometimes it's not all going to work for you. It's very subjective. But so far this year, I have just been rolling in the poetry that is particular for me, and I have been loving it. I will say, if you notice, these are the 4 collections that showed up in my haul for this month, the month of April. I guess when this is coming out, it's not quite April anymore. But all of these were in my haul for the month of April, and I bought them all at a specific independent bookstore that I really enjoy going to. And I always do a big poetry haul with them every year for National Poetry Month. And I forgot to mention when I originally did that haul that all 4 of these poetry collections came with these little poems that are meant to be used as bookmarks, I think. But this is a program that's called Poetry for Everyone, or Poesía para Todos. This is originally done in Spanish, and then these got translated. And it has a poem on the back of it. This one in particular is written by Claudia Castro Luna. And I figured I would read it for you because I've been using this as the bookmark in all of these poetry collections for the month. So yeah, I felt like it would just be a lovely way to end off this little poetry wrap up that we have done. So this one is all about the color green, hence why it is green, and green is my favorite color. And this says, "Green is the color of love, as in the foliage of trees, who birth air that we may breathe and be, dream and give and make love." Isn't that lovely? It's just a lovely little snippet that I've returned to throughout the month as I've been using as a bookmark. It also has the poem in Spanish as well. So yeah, this is great. I'm definitely going to save this and I'll continue using it as a bookmark for myself when I read poetry collections. So I hope you enjoyed hearing about all 4 of these. I hope you found something that you're interested in or want to take a chance on. Please let me know if there was any poetry that you loved reading this month for our beloved National Poetry Month, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!